like this. All right, so we're ready. Magic.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
The executive director of a small nonprofit has been in Pittsburgh called Open Lake. And Kitty was at an event where I was doing some Q&A with Sister Mary Scullion. And so asked me if I'd be interested in doing this. And I'm a resident of Bucks County, and so I'm very interested in hearing.
That's fine. Do you know what? I wasn't able to read my little thing that I had wrote for the last time you were there, so it's such a minimal amount of time. So I'm gonna read it to you because I'm not a politician, so I need a script in front of me. I haven't memorized any lines here. Good. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Frost Remmey, and I live right here in Bucks County, actually right over here in Fairless Hills to be exact. And I'm not going to start out by telling you some talking points or party slogans, but I do want to start telling you something simple. I'm not a politician. I'm just your neighbor. And I shop where you shop. I drive the same roads that you drive, and my life looks a lot like yours. And I think that matters because the people who represent us in Washington should know what our lives look like. They should understand what it feels to work hard and to pay the bills, to care about your family, to worry about whether or not anyone in government is still listening. So tonight I want to tell you who I am and why I'm running and what I believe. And then most importantly, I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not a career politician, and I want to be very clear about that. I actually never dreamed of holding a political office, and I've never held one. I'm not standing here with you tonight polished with a political resume, clearly. I'm standing here as someone who's worked hard and worn a lot of hats, Phillies and Eagles too. And I'm just trying to do the right thing for people and their families in the community. I graduated right here from Conway Catholic. I went to Bucks County Community College and ended up graduating from Temple University with my bachelor's degree in communication. And since then, I went on and worked in college admissions. I worked in the court systems, in the sheriff's office, law offices, and local classrooms. And currently, I also work as a fitness instructor. So I've worked with people, families, clients, small businesses, and people trying to navigate complicated systems during some of the most stressful times of their lives. I spent nearly 6 years in career education. I worked as an admissions recruiter, and I moved to the Poconos and became a legal assistant. I moved on working in the courts. I worked part-time in the Monroe County farmers market. So I've done a lot of things, and I've worked in a lot of administrative capacities. And working in the courts, I got to document court proceedings. I managed calendars, scheduled hearings, and worked with court technology. And when I returned to Bucks County, I came back here and I started working as a substitute teacher in the school district until I found a great position at one of the oldest firms in Bucks County. Now, none of that work was glamorous, but it did matter. And it taught me how the system works, how often they fail regular people every day, and how important it is to have someone who is willing to listen, solve problems, and show up. I share all of this not to read you my resume, but because these experiences help shape the way I see public service. I've seen people working hard, trying to follow the rules, trying to build good lives, and still feeling like the system is stacked against them. I understand the legal system, the school system, small businesses, and working families. And I do not believe public service should be about power. I believe it should be about serving people. That's the person I am, and that's what I would bring to Congress. I didn't just wake up one day and decide I wanted to be a politician. It was more of a slow realization. I kept seeing regular people doing everything right and still feeling like no one in government was listening to them. I saw families working hard, paying more, getting less, and wondering if anybody was actually understood what their lives looked like. I look at Washington and I see career politicians who talk about freedom like it's a bumper sticker, and then govern like it's optional. I see government getting bigger, more expensive, more intrusive, and I see regular people getting squeezed. People right here in Bucks County, and the people right here in this room. And I believe that your rights are inherent. They are not gifts from Washington. They do not come from politicians' generosity. They belong to you because you are a free human being. I'm running because I think you deserve a representative who actually trusts you, a representative who trusts you to raise your family, trust you to run your business, trust you to make your own decisions, and trust you to live your life without someone in a suit 500 miles away telling you how to live. You deserve someone who doesn't want to just talk about freedom during a campaign, but actually believes in it when it matters. You deserve a neighbor who trusts you with your freedom, and that is why I'm running.
It's the floor to you, if you would like to share a couple minutes of who you are. Please, Lucia.
Thank you for moderating. Jamie, thanks for being here, Katie, and all of you. In fact, I was at the event where I first met you when I heard the phrase, none of us are home until all of us are home. And it has been something I've been repeating since then because it really put words to a message that underpins, I think, why a lot of us in this moment are coming together and doing some crazy things like running for office because we do care about our communities and the collective. So my name is Lucia Simonelli. I'm running in the primary as a Democrat. I am not the party chosen candidate, so I'm a bit of an outsider. I live up in Quakertown. I was born and raised in Lansdale, an area where my mother's family has lived for over 50 years. My father immigrated to this country in the 80s. I grew up working class. We did not have financial stability. We did not have health insurance for a time. And I know how difficult it was. I also know the opportunity that we had to access things like public parks and libraries and media and transportation and schools. And public education was a real savior for me. It enabled me eventually to get my PhD in mathematics. I taught around the world. I joined UNESCO to teach and do math research around the world. And then for the past 7 years, I've been working to fight climate change through federal policy, including for a time in Congress. And when I was there, I realized that policy and Congress has the potential to do so much good. This is how we address systemic changes to help people. But our system's captured. It's captured by billionaires. It's captured by corporations. And if we really want to see good change, we have to take our power back. And you're right, it's not just about winning. It's not about holding power to keep power. It's about what we do when we have it. And that is why it's so important that people like us who have full-time jobs, some of us have 2 of them, in a system that is rigged against enabling us to do things like hold public office, it's important that we try. It's important that people outside of the ruling class, outside of the political elite, stand up right now who are connected to our communities. And so I'm so appreciative, Jamie, of you stepping up and even participating in an event like this, because what's also important is that we talk and we share ideas and we show people the choices that we can have, that we can agree and also disagree, because this is democracy. Thank you.
For your perspective. I have a lot of questions. So I'm going to give you all about probably about 2 minutes per question, if that's okay. And I think probably we'll start closer to home here. One of the things that is very important to me, and I think it really impacts our neighbors in particular right now, especially our older neighbors, is affordability for older neighbors. And I'm just wondering in particular, because one of the things that I see every single day are older Americans coming to me who are housing insecure, who have been displaced from their homes because of rising rents, because of being evicted because of the rising rents, and also that Social Security is not keeping up with their expenses as an older American. As a member of Congress, what would you how would you address Social Security first? How would you address that, and how would you address the plight of older Americans? Because Pennsylvania, I believe, is the 2nd or 3rd oldest state in the United States. So we have an aging population. So how are you going to address the needs of some of our older Pennsylvanians?
I'll start with Social Security, which is a real topic, a topic that should be focused on, because I think there's also such a simple common sense fix to this. Social Security is something people pay into, and it's something that they are eventually owed. This is our money, our benefit, and it is going to be insolvent by 2032. So that means that you won't get 100% of the benefits that you're owed, you'll get about 70%. And there's a way to fix this. The Social Security tax works that you pay out of your income 6.2%, and your employer pays 6.2%, and that is applied to your income up to a cap. And then any income above that cap is not taxed. That makes no sense. So we need to lift the cap. And just to give you a sense, the cap last year was about 176,000. The cap this year is about 184,000. So if we just lift the cap, or there's legislation proposed where you don't lift the cap, you don't tax the income between that cap and 400,000, and then you reapply the tax to any income over 400,000. So you really you make people pay their fair share that are making that amount of money. So, but there are real ways to fix it without putting any additional burden on the people that are already paying their fair share. So I think Social Security really needs to be top of mind. It's an important program, and we can save it and we can secure it. That would increase the solvency by at least 75 years. So moving on to, sorry, I'll be quick. The second thing, but I think also, you know, the effect of the privatization of our healthcare system, we're seeing across the board, and I think it disproportionately affects vulnerable communities like the elderly. And, you know, Medicare Advantage is a scam. Why is that even a thing? So we need to really reform our healthcare system to curb the influence and the power that private health insurance, that big pharma, big hospital have over our system. And I think the way to do that is to work towards Medicare for all. And one of the proposals that I really like, to make sure that when we say healthcare is a human right, that means everyone has access to healthcare. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter where you live. That we can do this by allowing willing states to trial universal healthcare, by being flexible with how they use their HHS funding, and serving as little laboratory spaces. And that way it builds political will, we build learning, we understand how it's done, we appreciate the fact that healthcare is a localized network of operators. So I think there's ways to get there. I think that that's what should be done. And I think that that is ultimately what we need to do to help all people, including the elderly.
Thank you. Jamie.
Lucia and I talked about this last time. We both have a lot of the same beliefs, and we want ultimately the same goals. I don't want to see anybody go without some type of support in their old age. And we have all paid into a system that has been pilfered by our government. And my concern is, I don't think giving the government more money to handle for us is the right way to go, because this is what's gotten us into the problem that we have with Social Security now. The issue is, I trust you more than I trust the government. So the more money we continue to give them, the more money they have to steal from you. So the fraud exists when we continue to give more and more money to our government. So my concern is, I think we can come up with reasonable options for people in retirement. I'm coming up on that age, and I'm frightened because I don't have a retirement account for myself set up or anything very large. And my paycheck since the time I was 12 years old has been garnished for that intent and has been taken away from me and from all of you to be used in other aspects. So, you know, I know in the long run, of course, I want to see everyone have support. We should all have the option to be able to decide where our money is invested. And I want to take it out of the hands of the government. I want to put it back in the hands of the people, because you know how to make decisions about your life better than the government does. And that's my position on Social Security. I don't want to take anything from anybody, to be honest with you, especially something that's been taken from you, because you should get it back. And the thing is, I just don't have any faith that if we continue down this path, it's going to get any better. And addressing healthcare. That is we all deserve to have reasonable health care. But again, and going back to getting government involved in things, We wouldn't be $40 trillion in debt if government didn't have their hands in everything. They have their hands in all the policy making when it comes to the pharmaceutical industries and the healthcare industries. What I'd like to see is I would like to see an actual free market where the government is not involved in regulating everything. Okay, we need to scale back and allow small community decisions to be made. If you want to collectively come together and pay for health insurance as a community to make it cheaper for you, I think that that's an amazing idea. I just don't think that our government is uniquely equipped to be handling the business of pharmaceuticals and healthcare because we are $40 trillion in debt and it's going to continue to rise the more money we keep giving them. And the more money that we're giving, they're getting more money as well. We realize that the money that we have out there, the actual money itself doesn't even total what our debt is. So inflation is our biggest problem right now when it comes to the affordability aspect of things. And so they're not simple answers. And Lucia is so smart. She has such great answers to a lot of problems. My concern is I don't want to see any more money go into the hands of government. They don't know how to use it. So
I wanted to do a follow-up question to JV about that.
Oh.
So I understand that you think that it probably would be better for us to privatize something like Social Security or like medical care. But one of the concerns I have as a provider of services to older people is how do we support them without it becoming all about profit? In that case, how do we work towards a system where these providers aren't focused on profit over people?
I think that that's a good question, but I also think that the free market works these things out. If you want to find the best competitive opportunities that you have there. So you're forcing people to provide you with better services if you have the options to move away from that. So I think that the free market, and I also think voluntarism is the most important thing. We have to be able to voluntarily participate in these things. We can't be forced into them. Voluntary cooperation is exactly what you're doing. The community comes together when we're not forced to come together to do these things. So when we have more money in our pockets because we're paying less money in taxes, we're already the most charitable country in the world. And we're struggling ourselves and we're giving money to everyone. When we have more money in our pockets, we're better equipped to be able to take care of our communities. And people like you step up and provide us opportunities to be able to help them and to volunteer. We help our communities when given the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to articulate why I am skeptical about it is because right now it is the free market. We don't have the option aside from, not everyone has the opportunity to have Medicare and Medicaid. Those are the public options restricted to certain subsets of the population. I don't have a public option. It is basically the free market for healthcare. Now, what we see is that if you are an individual that's trying to buy healthcare, actually, it's hard to afford. And what you can afford is not good. If you get it through your employer, it's usually better because they have the leveraging power of that entire group of people that they can then bargain the health insurance company for. Okay, so that's great, but not everyone has that. It's really cumbersome for a small business. So for me, in order for what you say to work, as in we can come together as a community, right? It has to be a large group of people with the power to negotiate with the private company because the company is going to be looking for profit, not for you. And that's why I like the idea of having something that for all is bargained collectively on behalf of all people. And that's what
I don't disagree with that at all, but why couldn't a homeowners association do that? Or my BJ's park membership?
That's for me government. That is for me, government is the entity that is negotiating on your behalf, not for profit.
Well, how are we going to make them accountable? Because you had asked me the same thing. How are we going to keep these companies from wanting to make profit? The government themselves is interfering and making profit themselves. We are in a very poor system and it's not free market. This is nothing like a free market. And when we're talking about government involvement, that means there is no free market because government is involved. So we need to get government out of industry, period. They should not be in the business of selling us anything. That's just, I don't think that that's the answer to it. Again, we are having such a difficult time trusting our politicians right now. I mean, look at the majority of politicians, majority of people in Congress right now are receiving money through lobbies and PACs. So what they're doing is they're passing legislation that's allowing these industries to keep them from being free. And that legislation is what's.
We're gonna shift the topics. So something else that I wanted to touch base on, because it is a national problem, international problem actually, is the affordability of housing. And it is a problem here in Bucks County, it's a problem in Montgomery County. There's no place in either of these communities where you can find rent under $1,000 a month. So that said, there's a lot of people who are trying to live in this beautiful community of Bucks County who cannot afford to live here. What are some of the things that you would focus on as a member of Congress to help housing be more affordable for the community?
We need to stop deficit spending. The inflation is out of control. Everything is going to be more unaffordable. We are printing money, and that's not going to correct matters. We need to balance a budget, and we can't do that in Congress when we keep spending. So we need to cut back on the spending. We need to reevaluate things, and we need to stop printing money. We need to stop sending money overseas as well, and we need to start focusing on the people who live here in our communities.
I totally agree with the no war spending anymore, that's for sure. We spend a lot of money on military, on an unaudited Pentagon, so I do agree with
That's disgusting.
that we need to redistribute wealth in a different way. And by redistributing wealth, we can do things like raise the minimum wage, $20. We can help people be able to afford things because social programs will be robust. We also do need to have a lot of mixed income housing developments. And that can be done through changing certain zoning requirements. And also there's an example in Montgomery County in Maryland that they do this really well at the county level, and they have a housing production fund. So instead of private equity coming in and being the developer or the financier, it's the government that plays that role. So it is not profit driven, it's driven for the community. And so I think there's ways, also tariffs on construction materials don't help, shortages of labor. I mean, this is a multifaceted problem. So there's a lot of things that need to be changed, but it is certainly unaffordable here and most places now.
In most places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Okay, so I appreciate that. So one of the things I also, that, is big on my list as a parent of, Gen Zers, and as someone who, is just kind of interested in the things that are important to that. One of the things that's really important to my kids is social justice. And some of the things that seem to be a hot button to this administration, they don't think is a thing, I'll be honest. And so I just would love to hear your take on some of the issues around social justice. I was a parent in the Central Bucks South School District, and we had a lot of issues around being able to support our students fully and authentically in that school district. So what are your positions on social justice, on making sure that Bucks County is a place that everyone belongs?
Sure.
I think that we touched on this significantly at the forum last week. And I think it was so hard because the truth is it is something hard to legislate, and it comes from really a culture that you build. And what we're seeing in my mind right now is this culture that defines strength through aggression and violence and sort of uniformity of expectation rather than thinking about dialogue and openness and inclusion and just being able to coexist with differences. And so I think it really does start with how we live ourselves and how we treat one another in basic respect. Now, in addition, we do have to codify anti-discrimination. I do not agree with book bans. And we have to also create safe spaces for children in schools and follow up when those things are violated. And what's been happening in this county is that rights have been violated, people have been threatened, students are unsafe for being different or perceived as being different, and there's no accountability for that. And so there must be an institutional awareness and preparation to deal with those things because it becomes very dangerous. And I think that we also are seeing that, there is a religion that's seeping in ways that is not how we are, how we built this country, which is we need to accept everyone and not impose anything on anyone else. And so that's something, yeah.
I can completely agree with that. As a libertarian, one of our principles is non-aggression. The non-aggression principle is core to our movement. The liberty movement can't exist if we can't all be individuals. And the Libertarian Party has fought very strongly for everyone to have individual liberties, regardless of how you live your life. It's none of my business and it's none of government's business how anybody chooses to live their life. As long as you are not imposing your beliefs or or doing so aggressively to anyone else. I should not be making decisions for anyone else's life but my own. I think that a lot of issues with kids today and the struggles that they're having communicating is because they don't know how to communicate. And they've lost the ability to communicate with one another because I believe social media and technology makes it more difficult. I mean, how many times have you read a text message in your own tone? And it's not even a tone of what somebody sent to you. But when we have these kids communicating with each other through text and behind keyboards, mind you, first of all, people tend to be keyboard warriors and they puff their chest out and they say things they would never say in person, because when you have to say that out loud in person, you have to be a human. And we're losing our humanity by communicating through these text means and through social media. And we're losing how to communicate with one another on a personal level. Like, people would want to put me and Lucia against each other and try and get us to argue because we have different sides, but we're not all that different. I do believe that we all really want the same thing. We want the best for each other. We want to be successful. We want to thrive. We want to have families and love our homes and support each other. But we don't know how to do that unless we start communicating with each other like humans again.
So let me go a little further. You brought it up. Let's talk about AI. So I mean, you better not everyone's listening to you right now. Take that side. So AI is the elephant in the room, right? And people are really struggling to get their hands around it. And so as members of Congress, some of the things that are being pushed are, is AI something that should be regulated? And if so, how? And so I would love to hear from you, Jamie, about your feelings on AI.
I am very concerned about it. I mean, did we not watch Terminator? I mean, seriously, people, what are we doing here? Like, all jokes aside though, I mean, think about it. We are creating so much uncertainty with what we're seeing that nobody trusts anything anymore, because AI is making it very difficult for us to understand or conceptualize what it is we're seeing. So yes, it is very dangerous. And we are talking about the data centers too. But we have to recognize and be accountable for our consumption of it, because honestly, that's what's causing our problem, is we consume it to an end and it's not going anywhere. And I don't know how to fix it, but I do know that there's probably ton of amazing, smart people that would be able to figure that out. And I like to surround myself with amazing, smart people, because that's how we accomplish things, is we try and work together to figure out what it is we want. And then we just have to make plans to get there and find the people who are able to do that. I'm not the person that can do that. But I do know that is very concerning for me, and that when it comes down to knowing my limits, I know when to seek and ask for assistance. And I do think we need help in figuring out this problem.
Yeah, I do think that we need guardrails on AI. And I'm a scientist, I like technology, I like emerging technologies, but they are not being, it's not being rolled out for societal need. It's being rolled out for big tech greed. And yes, I do think we have to be responsible about our consumption generally. But we also need to make sure that the rules are not being written by the people who are profiting from it. And that's what's happening now. And so one of the reasons why I might differ on what I think government should do or the size of government is one of the things that's allowing for that influence to happen is that because of an effort in the 90s to make government smaller, all of the scientists in Congress were basically booted out. They defunded an entire agency called the Office of Technology Assessment, which was very small budget, but what it did was say, listen, we're gonna have to deal with things like AI in the future. You need objective people who know what they're talking about, that are not influenced by big money, giving advice to policymakers. That was completely defunded because they wanted to cut government. And so I think my thing is, we need that, because what ends up happening is that we shouldn't trust politicians to say, oh, I'm just gonna ask whomever, or I'm gonna ask who comes to my office and has the lobbying power to give me advice. We do really need to have evidence-based policymaking that is putting communities first. And so I do think we need to figure this out. We need to really slow it down. And I also think we need to recalibrate for what the future workforce is gonna look like, because it's coming for us.
I do want to point out though that I'm not looking for advice from lobbyists, just to clarify that would not be who I'd be looking for advice from.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about that, because something you said at the end there, I think is important. I know I see them all the time. There's a lot of data centers being constructed, and they take a significant amount of power, they take a significant amount of water. They bring some jobs. What are your perspectives on data centers? How do you think that they should, or should they, be allowed to continue to sort of blossom the way that they have? Who would like to start that one?
I mean, I'm not an expert on data centers. I'm not, and like I said, you know, I have limited expertise in a lot of things because I do. But the fact is that the community is unhappy. And the fact is that you are allowed to dictate what happens in your community, period. Now, again, data centers are going to be built. So we have to have the discussion. But communities have every right to put a stop to the things moving forward until their concerns are addressed. I 100% back any community that wants to make sure that the safety of their community, they are able to live. I'm hearing like noise and environmental concerns. All of these concerns should be addressed. And you should be satisfied with the answers before you allow anybody to build within your community. AI centers or not, data centers or not, anybody coming into your community, you should have a right to dictate who builds in your community.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they're being pushed on our communities too quickly. And one of the things, and the reason why I am very much in favor of a moratorium is not because I don't think that we will need data centers, but it's because in order to protect our communities, we have to understand how. And the truth is, we still don't know the energy use. We still don't know the environmental impacts. We still don't know the noise impacts. There's many things we're not sure of. And also, what ends up happening is that communities that are more resourced have access to things like legal advice to make sure that they can draft very strong ordinances to protect them or say no to them. And it leaves more vulnerable communities to be the ones on the front line where data centers are built. So I think we need pause. Let's figure out what a base set of protections look like. And then we also need to invest in our grid infrastructure because our utility bills are skyrocketing. Our infrastructure on the grid is crumbling. We're not ready for this. I want to say it's interesting, adding large loads to the grid, this is kind of wonky, but like is actually good for the way that our grid is constructed if we were to utilize it better. So we do need to do a little bit of investment in utilization and distribution, but we're just not ready. We're doing it too fast. So we need to take a break and figure out how to do it better.
Thank you. let's pivot to another hot button topic. It's been all over the news. We've seen ICE raids in our own communities. And I would love to talk a little bit about your stances on immigration. You know, what's happening now, how you feel about it, and how, you know, do you think immigration is a challenge or a problem? And if so, what would you do as a member of Congress to help support or support an easier path to coming into the country?
Yeah, I think that, well, first I want to say that I am in favor of cutting governments in the sense that we should abolish ICE. So we might have some smaller government wishes that align. But I think immigration, first and foremost, needs to be brought back to what it meant for this country, which is it built this. Most of us are descendants of immigrants, if not immigrants ourselves. So this is the fabric of our nation. Immigration has been our superpower. We have seen immigration framed in the context of fear and criminality as a tool for divisiveness, as a tool to distract from their problems. And this is problematic. We have to return the conversation of immigration to hope and welcome and solidarity and the strength that it brings. That's first and foremost in my mind, because then, only then, can we actually reform our immigration process in a humane way that keeps us all safe, because that is of concern. And a lot of the problems with our immigration process is that people are not timely processed. People are not able to move through the asylum process in a way that protects them and protects us, because we don't have enough resources going to these programs. So we do need reformation. We also need, though, to shift how we think about it. And embrace it. Embrace immigration as something really important. I would also say for the scientific enterprise, H-1B visas, super important for keeping us competitive. It was the driver of our scientific innovation. So for me, it means a lot.
There's not a lot that I disagree with that. Honestly, I mean, the fact is we were built on the backs of immigrants here, and my family is immigrants as well. I think that that's just another failure on the part of government, and that's where I'm at. I would love to abolish ICE just because it's a 3-letter agency and the government is too big and it cannot manage itself any longer. So yes, I have no argument with you there at all. I do think that this has been handled awfully by this administration. And I do think it's been used as a tool to divide us. And we are not going to be fooled by that. Okay, so I do not have a lot of disagreements with you on that, except for the fact that we should not be involving government in any way, shape, or form in these, because it's been a failure, an abject failure, and I don't think anyone in here can tell me anything that the government does that works well.
Great. So let's keep going in the vein of immigration, because in Bucks County, there is a very large Russian and Ukrainian population. And there is still a conflict going on in Ukraine. There's also a conflict going on in Iran at the moment. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on both of those conflicts. You know, the declaration was that the Ukrainian war was going to end in 24 hours, I believe. And then we were going to focus on ourselves and not focus on foreign conflicts. And that seems to be at odds with what is actually happening in the administration. If you were a member of Congress, how would you deal with these two conflicts, and how would you focus our energy as a country in foreign policy?
Well, I would end all funding to any foreign wars. To be honest with you, I just want to remind every one of you in here that Brian Fitzpatrick signed a bomb that went to Ukraine. Just remember that. That's the incumbent. And he won't come and even talk to Lucia or Bob Murphy because he thinks he's better than you. Okay? I just want to remind you that libertarians are non-aggression and we do not intervene. We should not be intervening ever in foreign conflicts, especially not at the behest of other nations. I do not think we should be funding wars either. That is just a principle of mine. I think that it is very important that we focus on the citizens of this country. We need to we can strengthen our borders here and make ourselves safe. That doesn't mean immigration strengthening. It just means being a stronger nation by staying out of other people's problems, especially when it doesn't affect us at all. We have two neighbors, Canada and Mexico, and both of them aren't very happy with us right now.
You're here.
Yeah, yeah, a lot to agree with there. Yeah, and the practice of signing bombs is disgusting.
Yes.
No matter where they're going, no matter what, that is just, it is gross. And Mr. Fitzpatrick also refuses to rein in the war. And he has the power, Congress has the power and should have the power. That is not leveraging right now. So a lot of this is the fault of our Congress people and we need new ones. But yes, I also don't think that we need to be waging wars. The war in Iran is a war of choice. It's reckless. We're sending over $1 billion a day there, probably more. And it's just devastating the global economy, the environment. We bombed a school of girls. I can't, there's no reason for it. We do need to understand and reevaluate which our relationships with foreign governments, accountability. We need to respect international law ourselves. Ukraine is a tricky situation because it is our proxy war, and we have to have some responsibility over that because we put Ukraine in a situation where they are kind of fighting a war for us. And so I think that it's not as simple as saying we just stop supporting them. I think I would defer to the Ukrainian people in terms of the support that they need, as long as they want to continue fighting for their territory. But the truth is that it's not going well. They are losing territory, they're losing lives. There's no end in sight. And so what I would like to do is for our country to really embrace diplomacy and find solutions that are not violent. And, speaking of foreign policy, a strength for us are agencies like USAID, not the Department of War. So let's fund those things. Those bring us real strength and real power.
Thank you. Awesome. So that said, part of the responsibility of Congress is to declare things like war or to not declare things like war. So my question to you is, if you were elected, then you have to go work with this Congress. Not everybody in Congress is functional. And so how would you work with some of this dysfunction in that governing body to be able to bring about change?
Well, I've worked in the legal field for a long time, so I've worked with a lot of dysfunction. It just comes with the territory. And the fact is, I have principles and I stand by them. I am not impressed with power and I am not impressed with money. So good luck trying to push me aside from any of the beliefs that I have. I will stand strong in my beliefs and I will not be agreeing to sending any money or supporting any war.
I think that it's a tough moment because I worked in Congress under the first Trump administration, and while I was in the Senate, Mitch McConnell was at the helm. There was an effort to just make legislation stagnant. That was a certain type of dysfunction. Right now, we're facing a dysfunction that is at a different level, and so what it takes, I think, right now is definitely to remain principled, but also to break the norms. Have the courage to disrupt. And that is, I don't say that as someone that is by nature a disruptor. I say that as someone who appreciates rules because they should be followed because it's better for all of us. But when people are breaking them and we are suffering the consequences, we also have to break them. So I would do some stuff like camp out, like break corn, like do all the things to fight to take our power back. It is unconscionable that we're bombing girls' schools. Yeah. Shouldn't we be pissed off about this? Why are we still coming back to the districts and, hanging out here? The jobs in Washington, it's not being done. Fight a little bit harder.
So on that, do you support impeachment? even if the other leaders of Congress do not.
I support impeachment for people who break the law. Our president has broken the law. Cabinet members have broken the law. I also think federal agents have broken the law that need to be held accountable in the proper form. Now, the reality is that if there is not willingness in the Senate and there's willingness in the House, I was there during an impeachment process. The House can impeach someone, it goes to the Senate, and nothing happens. So what you've done is you've lost a ton of time. You've stopped doing stuff for something that's a little bit symbolic. So I think that I would support it because we have to hold people accountable for this to function. But I think we also have to be really realistic about the outcomes of that and what we would be compromising if that's the priority that we say put forth in the House, but cannot follow through with in the Senate. Because there's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes that then Congress would not be able to bring in or tackle.
I don't disagree, and there is the tremendous amount of dysfunction, but there is no accountability. I mean, we have so many things happening in Congress right now that are so incredibly disturbing, even more disturbing than war. You know, we don't want to talk about the files that are sitting there where no accountability has happened. And we think that somehow we're going to get an impeachment. We can't even get a billionaire put in jail for pedophilia. And we're not talking about right now, we have people sitting and lying to Congress with no accountability. I agree. I don't see how we would accomplish anything with that because currently we're not accomplishing anything. And the only way to do that is to start sending people who are outside of the political spectrum into Congress so that they can disrupt these things. And that is why I would make a good choice for Congress.
So that leads to my last question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. So how are you both different than the political machine that's in power now?
I teach group fitness classes. That's what I do. I actually think that'd be great because I'd stand up there and yell at everybody like I do all the women in my classes. I'd whip them into shape. No, honestly, I've never wanted to be a politician. I'm just a people person. But I know it's right, and I'm a human, and I want to bring something human to this office. We certainly have a robot in the office right now. He doesn't. It's insane to watch how he treats his constituents. I don't know how he gets back into office, but I'm sure it's the people who are lining his pockets that are getting him there. I would be different because I am different.
Lucia.
Yeah, I think I've experienced what it means to be different in this process. I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm running as someone not embraced by the party. Being the unendorsed candidate has come with, uphill battles and understanding what it means to go against the establishment, and it's real. And so what we see in both our representative in Congress, Brian Fitzpatrick, and also the other Democratic candidate, Bob Harvey, is falling in line with party leadership, doing what they're told to do, not thinking independently and critically. And so I think I'm values first. I'm community first. And I don't care if that means that I will lose the next election or that I will lose favor with party leadership or that I won't get a donor's money. I believe in maintaining integrity first and foremost, and that's what we've lost in Congress.
All right, so you're gonna open it up. Who we have? Okay, first question.
Here we go. Why am I not surprised?
So many questions I want to ask, but I'm going to focus on kind of the one I usually ask. Both of you have talked about how dysfunctional government is. And I believe the primary reason why it's dysfunctional is the deluge of money, private money, into our elections. Not only Citizens United, which was one of the worst moves of my lifetime, I think, But the PAC money that goes to supporting candidates, and also all the private donation money that goes to candidates directly, like for instance, Brian Fitzpatrick has over $7 million. I believe that personally, obviously we gotta overturn citizens and do all that, but I think we should have legislation, at least for federal government elections, to stop all private money going to federal campaigns to be replaced by public financing. For which candidates like you two would, once you filed your FEC papers, you would, you would have like a website on that FEC, and people would go there and decide, okay, this person deserves to get money to run for office. I mean, think about all the time, I know you have it, that you spend trying to get money to fund your campaign, and how hard it is for outsider candidates like yourself. And I think we would get more outsider candidates that way. So anyway, do you agree with that, or do you have other ideas on stopping the flood of money into our federal elections?
Yeah, I think we both agreed on this heavily. I think that there has to be so much more transparency in the money that's coming into our politicians. I heard a story about a politician's, one of the congressmen talking about sleeping on the couch in his office when he's down there because he can't afford an apartment in DC, but his colleagues are buying $1 million homes there. I wonder how that's happening. There shouldn't be, and I know another thing we agree on is the insider trading that's happening in the floor of Congress. These things, they should have to divest. They shouldn't be allowed to invest in any, when you're an attorney, you have to disclose conflicts of interest. So why is the legislative branch of our government not having to divest? I don't understand that. It's a complete conflict of interest for anybody who's legislating to take money from an individual who benefits from that legislation. It makes complete and total sense to me. I don't understand why it wouldn't make sense to anybody else.
Yeah, it's conflict of interest. It is making it that we don't have representative democracy because only independently wealthy, well-connected, ruling class, political elite folks make decisions for us. And so I do think we need to get rid of money in politics. It is unnerving to hear that Fitzpatrick has so much money, $7 million. And then the Democratic Party counters that with, we need to raise just as much, but then we're all gonna be talking about affordability in the next breath. Like, this is not right. It does not make sense. It's not fair. It is the root of a lot of issues. And so I know our campaign has, rejected corporate PAC money, APAC money, any money with strings attached. But the point is, we shouldn't have to campaign in a system where it takes a lot of money to do it. And so, yes, Rob, I learned about that from you, and I'm completely supportive of publicly funded campaigns to level the playing field. Yeah.
So I'm seeing the biggest difference between the two candidates here as their conception of government. So could you both answer for me, what do you believe the role of government is in this country?
It should be incredibly limited and small and local, period. You guys, the decisions that are made in your life should be made on a local level. The federal government needs to be dramatically reduced in size and scope. It's overrun, and I don't believe that we should continue to fund an effort that is growing exponentially and costing us so much money. States' rights first, and then local.
I believe government should take care of people. I believe that it's the none of us are home until all of us are home. And where we disagree beyond that, I think, is, okay, let's talk about the IRS, because I know you don't like the IRS.
I don't like any three-letter agency.
Which you're not about, right? So basically, the IRS hasn't existed for rich people already. We've done this experiment. This is what was done in the 80s, and wealth disparity has grown. Rich people in particular, let me give you an example. Elon Musk has accumulated almost $780 billion. Many years, he pays $0 in federal taxes. The IRS is not something that he deals with. So let's take that experiment of getting rid of the IRS. How much money has he given away out of his net worth? 0.06%. That money he made is not hardworking money that then creates jobs, etc. It's money made off of money, made off of money in a rigged system where he does not have to contribute to the society on which he depends for it. Because he has stocks. He doesn't liquidate them. He doesn't trade them. So they're not taxed. He borrows against them. So I believe in the IRS, especially for those wealthy people, because this is how we redistribute money. And when we don't do it, people are not goodwill and taking care of the community. They just want more. So I think the job of government is to make sure that we're all taken care of.
feel like Oprah. Are you, I know, I say you're handing out cars.
Before 2027.
I wanted to kind of go back to what we were talking about in the healthcare and the cost of healthcare and stuff like that. For me, healthcare is very important because I have a kid with special needs. And so I understand the cost of healthcare, but I also have studied a lot about economics. And there is a conception in economics that says all profits tend towards zero because of competition. And I believe that most billionaires like you, Elon Musk did not make his money honestly. He used the government to bash down his competition through patent law, through all that stuff. So if you look at all the people who are real problems, they use patents, they use trademarks, there's patent wars all over. Nobody that you know their names as a billionaire would be a billionaire if it wasn't for the laws that they use to beat down their competition to make sure that their profits don't tend towards zero as the economic laws states. So what would you do about that? How would you address the fact that instead of like saying, hey, we're going to tax these people who use the government to beat down their competition and make a bunch of money, can we make the system fair so that you don't have to do that, so they don't have the competitive advantage in the first place?
Well,
That's my problem. If I can just say one thing about that subject itself, he doesn't actually create anything. It's other people's inventions and makes money from them. If we can fund the people who invent these things and give them the opportunity to grow their own business with their own inventions, that's an option.
Can I add to that?
what Jennifer said, yes.
Just to add to that, the whole thing is, if I create a pizza shop on the let's say down the street, and somebody else has, oh, he's making a lot of money, I'm gonna create a pizza shop there and compete with them. That is illegal under our patent system if you come up with an idea. Most ideas are built on everybody else's ideas, so that is 100% true. It's all a rigged game, and the patent law, and I'm in IT, like I know all about patent law. Like I'm totally against it. I would abolish all patents if I had, and I know that that's easier said than done. But what can you do to slow it down?
I don't think I know enough about this, to be honest. I think also because patents serve different purposes in different sectors. For example, if I think about the creative community, or I think about other industries, I think that there are a place for patents that protect people too from predatory behavior of more powerful entities that want to swoop in. So I don't think there's a blanket answer there. I'm sure that things need to be fixed to prevent certain things like patents on seeds, right? Like big ag, that's a big problem, for example. But I don't have a uniform answer for it because I think it really does depend on the circumstance. But Armando maybe has a thought about it.
Oh, I have so many thoughts. I just wanted to piggyback off of the Elon Musk hatred because I absolutely agree. But I also want to acknowledge, right, that Elon Musk, you're absolutely correct. He doesn't make anything. His workers do. The workers should own the ability to run the company because they're the ones who show up and make the cars, the engineers, the designers. These are the people who deserve the wealth that has been accumulated by Tesla and many other owned companies by Elon Musk. The people who actually put in the labor are the ones who deserve ownership over how the company runs. And our current system in our government has set to divide us from actually having ownership over our own government, our own businesses or jobs and where we show up to work. So how are we going to use the government to give the workers ownership, a place, a voice of how the company should be run? Everything's like a mini dictatorship. Elon Musk owned everything. So he's not going to be responsive to the needs of the worker or the needs of the communities that he's supposed to be serving. Whereas the workers who actually live in the communities they work will be.
Well, unfortunately, Elon Musk was the person who was able to fund the company, and he was the one that put the structure together. So the notion of the people who work there owning it just doesn't work unless they were able to buy out his interest in it. And I understand the idea of wanting to everyone have ownership, but you do have ownership of yourself and personal ownership and accountability. And that's what we need to recognize. So if you want to go and build a company, adding more government intervention and adding more laws and it makes it harder for people to actually open businesses. Government actually is the reason why so many small businesses fail. So the laws that are designed to keep small businesses down are the things that we need to be thinking about getting rid of.
I think that we should be working towards cooperative models. I believe in publicly owned utilities. And I think we should be expanding those things. At the same time, we should be giving workers more power and protecting their right to do things like multiply organize and bargain. So I think I think there are routes to getting there from different angles where we can push the model towards actually people doing the work, getting the benefits. Because right now, it's just, as soon as you have a little bit of power, use that to get more power off the backs of others. And so it's a real issue, and thanks for raising it.
Could we bring up one more part of this? That is the abolishment of the Department of Education. One of the challenges right now that's a kitchen table conversation is student loans. How do you become successful in your work if you're always behind in your payments of your student loans? If you're not able to get an education in something that's creative that helps it drive innovation. And so I just am curious about I know the government is you're not a big fan of, but what do you think about this? Basically wiping out that department, and how do you see the ability of young Americans to get a good education moving forward? How is that going to happen when student loans are so incredibly ridiculous?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if you were talking, because I kind of like bigger governments.
Right.
You're talking to me.
No, but I just, the current administration is intentionally trying to get rid of that department. So I'm wondering, do you still see a place for that department? Because right now, all it is basically a loan servicer.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, is there a role for that department to play in innovation and moving forward?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, we have to bring it back. I do think it takes some recalibration, but I think education is a right, just like healthcare is a right. Education is what enabled my family to get financial stability. And I think education looks different, right? It can be a technical school, it can be university, it can be job training in many forms. And making that available and accessible to people is incredibly important. And so I do think that the role of the Department of Education is to make sure everyone has access to be able to then provide for themselves in society. And I think that's going to look a lot different with things like AI coming in. I think the role of the Department of Education is also to help us prepare for those things. Now, in terms of going into debt for college, I think it's ridiculous.
I think in part though, there is blame to be placed on universities becoming more for-profit enterprises and trying to provide all these things, more so than the basic education needed to get jobs. And so I am for free community college. And I think free public universities, different job trainings, but we have to pare back what people are expecting from the college experience. And I think these private universities that cost 40,000 plus a year are absurd, more. And they're also creating an elitism that is dangerous. I've only gone to public schools, and I've had an employer suggest that we should filter job applicants by whether they've gone to an Ivy League or not. Okay, I was horrified by this. So I think that the Department of Education is important, but it does need its fixes. But I don't think that student loans should be approved.
Jamie? Student loans are outrageous. And it has a lot to do with the federal lending practices. And it gave the universities no accountability. And all they did was continue to raise prices because they were getting a never-ending stream of loans. And they have no accountability. So I think the university should be held accountable if the students can't pay their loans back. I also think that when it comes to the Department of Education, it puts a lot of extraordinarily unnecessary red tape for teachers. And I think that it also costs a tremendous amount of money for bureaucrats and not enough money in the classrooms. I think we really need to focus on bringing teachers more. I think that teachers can be paid more for not paying bureaucrats to make these decisions in Washington. Why are we having someone in Washington tell a teacher at Truman or a teacher at Conwell or the technical high school, why are we paying them to tell these teachers what they need to do in their classrooms? They don't know the student. They don't know the community. You are now taking resources away from them to pay someone a six-figure salary to make decisions when they don't know the needs of the community. So I am not a fan of continuing to funnel money into bloated bureaucratic systems. I know you guys hate that I have to say that, but the fact is that those salaries that are being paid to those bureaucrats go right back into our communities and back into those classrooms. Those teachers should not be taking their salaries and going and buying supplies for their classrooms when you have some stranger in Washington making a six-figure salary and giving them more work. Other questions?
Let me go here first. There we go.
Just recently, I was reading about Babylonia and 3,500 years ago, when rules and codes were first formed. And I was trying to equate it with, and those are the rules that we still follow. Some of them, fortunately, because some of their punishments, well, are no longer legal. But I think about how that was necessary for them to form a government because the number of people increased. So everything that we talk about has been repeated in history. There's the haves and there's the have-nots, period. I don't know if we're ever going to change that as human beings. And we need the rules and we need the laws when the number of people get larger. We have an incredibly big and fertile country. My question is this experiment not working? Are we too big? We have a lot, there's so many other countries. All other developed countries have health care for everybody. They pay high taxes, but they never once in their mind think about not going to get taken care of because they can't afford it. It's not in their lifestyle, period. They don't think about it. Canadians don't think about it. The Scandinavians don't think about it. Their lifestyle, the Italians, the UK. When they have no idea what we're talking about when we say we spend thousands of dollars a year and we don't even use it. Thank goodness we didn't have a catastrophe. This is our lifestyle in this country. It's all profit. And people are suffering. And the government, we do need a government, though. We need it. Should we divide? Is my question. Is our government too big? And should we do something really big to save our resources, to save our country, to save the world? Because it's really falling apart now. And there's so many people suffering. Are we too big? Is our experiment failing?
I don't actually think that we ever let our experience come to fruition because government got involved and got too big and then started taxing the people and legislating us out of our freedom. We never fully appreciated what our experiment as a nation was because our government got in the way. So yes, I do think our government is too big. And yes, I will always do everything I can to tell everyone that we need to reduce the size and scope of the government.
No, I'm sorry, the question was, is our country too big? Is our country too big?
Land mass, I think we have a huge big country.
The whole experiment,
Well,
not our, I mean, because we
well,
are,
the fact is,
we are our
we
government
are
anymore. We are authoritarian.
We are a nation of states, and so we should be focusing on maybe scaling back to making sure that states have more power than the federal government does, because that's really truly what we were meant to have. So yes, I do think that we've gotten big. We have a massive population here. The world population is increasing too. And it's very frustrating because it's very hard to agree on things. But what I can agree on is that the bigger the government's gotten, the worse things have been getting. And we just keeps getting bigger. And we really need to do something about that. And so taking back some of the power that Washington has over the states and maybe making decisions on a local level is probably better for us in the long run.
I think that there is a lot of strife and difficulty in subdividing something that already exists. I don't think that's gone well generally. That creates other divisions. So we may be too big, but I think we are at the moment. And what I think we see at the level of the United States, we see at the level of our state, we see it at the level of our communities, and we see it globally. So for me, it is more a shift in mentality that we need to foster that will address this idea of thinking more about we're on this planet, we're sharing this planet. We have to act in a way that's responsible for everyone and not try to hoard things or not try to use more resources that we have. That's the shift we need to take. And I think part of that is electing better people to hold office.
I'm sorry, I have to respond to this because it's so funny. How you put that is how I talk to myself every morning when I'm driving to work. And I'm sitting in traffic and watching everybody not let anyone out into traffic because everybody has to get to the red light so fast. And I say out loud every morning, come on, people, we're all human. We all need to work together societally to make this happen. Because it's really true. We have to get back to our humanity. We're neighbors. We're community members. We need to work functionally as a society. So, we have to get back to that humanity. But that made me laugh because I'm in my car every morning going, come on, people, we can do this. I'm not with you. It's my conversation with myself in the morning.
I think we're gonna take 2 more questions. We have a second question here. Did anybody else have another?
Well, how would you change Pennsylvania's election laws?
There you go.
Oh, well, we both know how impossible it is to get on the ballot. As a third-party candidate, do you know how many signatures I need to get? I need over 5,000 just to get on the ballot. Although the party that I'm represented has chosen me to be their representative, I still have to get 5,000 signatures. And how I have to do that is I have to go out and explain to the residents of this district that regardless of party affiliation, I need your permission to run for office. And you have no idea how hard that is. People do not understand that Pennsylvania has some of the most restrictive ballot access laws of any state in this country. And you should be able to have more people on your ballot than less. Especially someone that has more.
Yeah, petition period's tough. Turns out if you're not the party endorsed candidate, you have 3 weeks to collect 1,000 signatures and you're boxed out of any of the streamlined petition signing events. So it is hard and ballot access should be easier. We should also have open primaries. We should not disenfranchise people who think independently. And we need ranked choice voting. Oh,
Another question.
So the Supreme Court just ruled to I guess strike down laws that were protecting the rights of minorities in certain states to have I guess vote for. They ruled in favor of gerrymandering, basically based on political purposes, supposedly political purposes. Supreme Court has made a lot of bad decisions, I think. And I'm wondering what kind of reforms you can think of to reform the Supreme Court, maybe courts in general, in terms of, I've heard about the term limits for Supreme Court justices, like 18 years, seems appropriate because that way Thomas, Alito, and Roberts would have to be retired now. But any other options in terms of maybe changing the process by which they're nominated and selected or whatever? What are your thoughts on how to reform our Supreme Court?
Sure. That's not something I sit around and think about often.
Definitely term limits. I think we should expand the court. And they are not held accountable for ethics violations. And that is absolutely sad. We are the law, not above the law. And our Supreme Court has been completely trampling over their supposedly independent stance. I would also just like to say, on the gerrymandering front, which is a real thing right now, that is crippling our democracy. It's crippling our ability to have true representation. I just want to say there are really cool opportunities here to talk about new ways of drawing districts like independent commissions, multi-member districts, ranked choice voting again, and also the fact that you can pick the Wyoming rule, the Q group rule. The number of people that represent us has not grown with the population. And so there are Congress people that are representing so many people that they become very disconnected from them too. So there's a lot of things we need to address in that front.
That sounds great. I love it. I agree. I think that accountability is really important, and working, with the courts and in the legal field, we need to be holding our representatives, our judges, our representatives, our legislation. We need to be holding them to a higher standard. They should be an example, not an exception to the rule.
All right, I think we're gonna wrap up. I think we have one more question and then we're gonna wrap it up. There we go.
I think this is probably something both of you would agree on, but something that I would love to see in Pennsylvania is more ballot initiatives, more specific votes that are brought to the people as opposed to decided by our representatives. I'm sure you're probably both.
Well, I mean, the fact that we have an ability to get information so easily, I don't see why it is that we wouldn't have that available more often. I mean, I think we should be able to have more. The fact that that you can walk into a polling place on election day and not know anything about the people that are on your ballot is kind of insane to me. So I think that it's important that we use the technology that we have to get out the messaging for each party's candidate. I think it would also make the process of running for office a little easier for each of the candidates as well. If we had an area for us to look for everything all at once, I guess.
Yeah. At first I thought you were going to say, why don't we legalize weed?
Yes.
I think we have commonality there. I do think that there's a problem with having a two-party system, and that is that we get this forced polarization of ideas and like the one-dimensional politics that aren't real. We agree differently on different issues, and it's not like left-right. And so we get better representation, especially outside of a system with many different parties, is if we get to vote on issues and get to vote on like specific things. So I like ballot initiatives because they give us the power to decide issue by issue. And I think that's more of what politics should be about, as opposed to allegiance to party, or that you are having, your ideas are held hostage by someone who has to adhere to a very rigid platform.
So with that, we have about 2 or 4 minutes. Would you guys like to take a couple minutes each and wrap up and say anything further?
As I mentioned earlier, it is going to take a very large effort to get me on the ballot. I need over 5,000 signatures, and I firmly believe that anybody who wants to run for office should be allowed to be on the ballot. You guys should have more choice than less. So if anything that I said to you today resonates at all, I would ask that you sign my petition before you leave today, because this is going to be a Herculean chore that I'm going to be spending every single weekend until the end of July, knocking on doors. And please send people to my website. I'll send you out a bumper sticker and just get my name out there so that we can get more people to my events. It would be wonderful to be able to get on the ballot. I'm going to face a lot of challenges with the incumbent challenging most of my signatures. So any help would be appreciated. Thank you all for having me.
Jamie, what's your website?
JamieFrostRemmey.com. Thank you.
Yeah, sign Jamie's petition.
Yeah.
I like the streaming audience.
Yes, please, please.
Signing petitions, it doesn't mean you're committing to vote for someone. It doesn't mean you necessarily agree with everything. It just means that you believe that we should have more folks taking part in this process, talking about ideas. I want to say that the two of us now have participated in more candidate forums than either establishment candidate running for office, right? This is what democracy is about. It's about talking about things, agreeing, disagreeing, moments of tension, moments of happiness, but coexisting in that space and having the opportunity to compare and contrast and learn and grow. And so I am so appreciative to everyone throughout over the past few months, especially Katie, who have also the first candidate forum that we had in our Democratic primary was actually a town hall that Ralph Strickler had for himself, and he opened it up to the rest of us. And so I just like, this is how it should be done, and it's hard. It's an uphill battle, but it's moments like these and people like these that really make me believe that together we can build a better future. Thank you.